Hello and welcome. With less than 48 hours to go before Delhi votes, what's the mood in the national capital? The results of the political stock exchange. We can't show you opinion poll data, so what we will do is look at different data sets which give you a sense of which way the winds are blowing and the factors that will determine who wins and why. That's my top focus on the news track.
High voltage Delhi campaign ends. Delhi votes in less than 48 hours. What will Delhi decide on? Can BJP repeat Haryana Maharashtra show? Who has the edge in Delhi? Political stock exchange.
It's curtains down on the high voltage campaign in the capital. Political big guns were booming in battleground Delhi. AAP convener and former Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has declared that his party is winning at least 55 seats. The BJP says time is up for AAP and that Delhi wants change this time. Here are the top campaign highlights from the last day of campaigning.
The last and final lap in the capital clash. The BJP, Aam Aadmi and Congress, big guns boomed in a final push to woo Delhi voters on Monday as campaigning ended. Home Minister Amit Shah hit the campaign trail, taking aim at the Aam Aadmi Party's governance model, accusing them of betraying Delhi.
भाइयों बहनों 10 साल तक अनेक वादा कर केजरीवाल और इनके चट्टे पट्टों ने दिल्ली को क्या दिया? भ्रष्टाचार दिया। ये दिल्ली को धोखा देने का काम केजरीवाल जी और उनके चट्टों पट्टों ने करा है।
The BJP's top ministers and leaders also hit the streets in a bid to script a comeback in the capital.
जनता की आंखों में धूल झोंकना यह उनकी बड़ी पुरानी आदत है, उनकी यह फितरत है और इस फितरत को दिल्ली की जनता अब अच्छी तरह समझ चुके हैं।
दिल्ली वासियों ने आम आदमी पार्टी की भ्रष्टाचार, विफलताएं और खुद के लिए सुख सुविधाएं खुद मुख्यमंत्री निवास एक मिसाल के रूप में दिल्ली वासियों के सामने है।
Foreign Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar attacked the Aam Aadmi Party, claiming he's ashamed of Delhi's lack of amenities.
मुझे देश के बाहर जाकर शर्म आती कहने में कि भारत के राजधानी में घर नहीं मिलता, भारत के राजधानी में गैस सिलेंडर नहीं मिलता। और ये दुर्भाग्य का विषय है कि पिछले 10 साल में कहीं दिल्ली पीछे रह गया।
Aam Aadmi Party chief Arvind Kejriwal hit back, accusing the BJP of copying the AAP schemes.
मैंने 10 साल पहले कहा था बिजली फ्री कर दूंगा। बीजेपी वाले बोले पैसा कहां से आएगा, केजरीवाल झूठ बोल रहा है। मैंने करी कि नहीं करी आपकी बिजली फ्री? बीजेपी वालों को कहना चाहता हूं, बनिए का बेटा हूं, सारा हिसाब किताब आता है। जादूगर तुम चिंता ना करो, सारा इंतजाम हो जाएगा पैसे का।
Kejriwal claimed BJP workers attacked Aam Aadmi Party workers, women volunteers and journalists, releasing a video to back the claim.
पिछले 3-4 दिन से हम देख रहे हैं कि गाड़ियों के ऊपर हमले किए गए, गाड़ियां तोड़ दी गई आम आदमी पार्टी की, कई सारे मटेरियल जब्त कर लिया गया, तरह तरह से हमले किए जा रहे हैं। तो अब जनता ने मन बना लिया, बाकी सारी चीजें एक तरफ, इस बार इनकी गुंडई को हराना है।
वो वाल्मीकि समाज के ऊपर में आरोप लगा रहे हैं, क्योंकि कल वाल्मीकि समाज के हजारों भाइयों ने वहाँ पे आम आदमी पार्टी का बहिष्कार किया, अरविंद केजरीवाल को वोट ना देने की अपील करी, तो वो उनको गुंडा कहने लग गए, उनको क्रिमिनल कहने लग गए।
जो बच्चे गारंटी है।
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi hit out at the Delhi education model in an interaction with students.
मैंने सुना है ये दिल्ली में 9वीं कक्षा के बाद बच्चों को आगे जाने ही नहीं देते। जो बच्चे गारंटी है पास होंगे उन्हीं को जाने दे। क्यों? क्योंकि उनका रिजल्ट खराब हो जाएगा तो मेरी सरकार की इज्जत खराब हो जाएगी, इसलिए बड़ा बेईमानी का काम होता है।
Congress MP Priyanka Gandhi Vadra hit the campaign trail too for the party.
मोदी जी कहते हैं कि नेहरू जी की वजह से ऐसे बहुत काम है जो हो नहीं पाए, कि ये देश रुक गया नेहरू जी की वजह से। जो कर नहीं पाते फट से नेहरू जी का नाम निकाल के बहानेबाजी शुरू करते हैं कि नहीं। और केजरीवाल जी क्या कहते हैं कि मोदी जी की वजह से काम नहीं कर सकते। ऐसे रोंदू नेता मैंने जिंदगी में नहीं देखे।
Who wins power in Delhi, many believe will depend on how the Congress performs. Delhi votes on Wednesday with the results on Saturday. Bureau Report, India Today.
When the battle for Delhi started, the Aam Aadmi Party seemed well in the lead. The BJP seemed sleeping at the wheel. Now the BJP machine has woken up and stirred into action. They're trying to mount a rearguard action. But even if the AAP slips, can BJP gain enough ground to actually surge ahead? Or will the AAP stay in front, even if it is with a reduced majority? That really is what's at play in this big battle for Delhi. On this week's edition of the Political Stock Exchange, we'll try and make sense of where the battle for Delhi stands at this moment. Allow me to introduce our guests for this broadcast. I'll begin with Yashwant Deshmukh, lead cephalogist at C-Voter. We have Professor Sanjay Kumar, co-director Lokniti CSDS. I have Amitabh Tiwari, well-known political strategist and commentator. Sanjay Jha joins us, and I have Rajat Sethi joining us on this broadcast. So let's get started. What I'll do is, we'll take you through some data sets. Remember, we're not allowed to show opinion poll numbers. We can't tell you whether it's the BJP or the Congress or the Aam Aadmi Party which is doing well or badly, but we can look at data for the way it stands, which by itself can help you get a sense of what are the critical factors in this battle for Delhi. So I'll take the first question, which is to do with the most important issue, this is data by C-Voter. They run a tracking poll. So the first question really deals with which is the most important issue in the national capital. And if you see, unemployment has been amongst the most important issues throughout this period. At least 21% of the respondents in all the last 4 trackers say unemployment is important to them. Just slightly more important than unemployment in the national capital are civic issues. So issues to do with sewerage, water, roads, that kind of stuff. Then women's security, then corruption, then inflation. Inflation is in fact the third most important issue, which is 18%. The issue with inflation is, who do you blame for inflation? If inflation is important, do you hold that against the central government? Do you hold that against the state government? And if civic issues are important, does that get held more against the state government than it does against the central government? Because civic issues are really about what's happening in your locality. And unemployment also, do you blame your local government for unemployment? Do you blame your national government for unemployment? And then there is development of the state, which doesn't seem to be a very significant issue. So civic issues coming in at 23%, unemployment at 21%, and inflation at 18%, with unemployment and inflation being 2 issues where it is debatable who voters pin those issues on. Civic issues very clearly would get pinned on the state government. The other 2 issues are really depending on the lens the voter sees these from. That being said, let me go across for opening comments to our panel of guests joining us on this broadcast. I'll start with Sanjay Kumar. Professor Kumar, what's your sense at this moment about where the battle for Delhi stands? And if the C-Voter data says that these are the most important issues, how would you be decoding or trying to interpret this data if you were looking at this Excel sheet?
If we look at the data in a comparative perspective, Rahul, when surveys of similar kind were done in other states, unemployment was a much higher number. If I'm talking about, say, Maharashtra or in Haryana, in Delhi it's slightly lower. My own sense is that elections in Delhi is not being fought on the issue of unemployment or price rise. It is being contested on two different issues. One, Aam Aadmi Party is pitching hard to convince the voter that they have done a great job for Delhi, especially with in the field of health and education, while on the BJP is trying to contest this election on the issue of corruption, because Aam Aadmi Party came up with a moral high ground when Aam Aadmi Party was formed, that this is a party which is fighting against corruption. So BJP is taking the plank of corruption. They're charging the government of being corrupt. They're not countering BJP, Aam Aadmi Party's claim that they have not been able to do.
No, but if you think that's the way it is, then corruption is not ranking very highly. Corruption is just 5% of the respondents think corruption is the #1 issue for them. So obviously that's not ranking as a very significant issue in the eyes of people that Yashwant's team has been speaking to.
That is why, if you look at how the campaign of BJP has changed a little bit, they started with, the Sheesh Mahal issue, the Sharab Ghotala, but slowly and gradually, if you notice that during the last 5 or 10 days, it shifted on the whole issue of pollution, Ganga water, and Yamuna water. So I think BJP also realized that yes, corruption is an issue which can influence the middle class voter, but this is not an issue which appeals the poor class voter and the lower class voter, which are the core vote banks of the Aam Aadmi Party. So I think both the parties are trying to contest issues on different grounds, and that is why unemployment is not coming up as big an issue as we see in other states.
Okay. I want to go across to Yashwant Deshmukh. Yashwant, of course, has all the magic numbers. We can't take them from him right now, but given what you can tell us, given the code of conduct of the Election Commission, what are the critical factors that you think will determine who's going to win? And if corruption ranks at only 5%, what does that mean in the context of the kind of pitched campaign we've seen from the BJP and the AAP?
Well, Rahul, everything is in context. I mean, when you talk about Kejriwal getting a popularity rating of 47, 48, 46% in tracker in the last 1 month, one has to also go back 5 years in the tracker and see that the same Kejriwal was trending at 60, 62% in the popularity numbers. So that drop is there. But the issue of corruption, as Sanjay ji rightly said, it worked to the point that it brought down the halo of Arvind Kejriwal and Aam Aadmi Party as no more a party of being a corruption crusader. But what it has done, that it has brought them to a level playing field of sort, which is critical to understand in the context of the fact that now they have a USP of governance and delivery of the freebies. That's where now they are selling it off. There is one very interesting trend in the graphics right now. You realize, Rahul, that January 6th, 18% on the civic issues, and now it is on 23%. That 5% jump is nothing but the BJP's change of campaign on the issues which actually matter on the ground. And the very fact that Aam Aadmi Party earlier used to blame them on the MCD, which was governed by the BJP, they are unable to do so anymore. And I think BJP probably might be thinking that, okay, Sheesh Mahal controversy, that was good, but they probably overstretched it and they should have used that time to hammer down Aam Aadmi Party more on the sewage and the bad water and the garbage collection. I think that might have helped BJP even better in turning the
do you buy this argument that, Sheesh Mahal was stretched, it saw a late pivot on the issue of, roads, sewage, water, pollution, but that came much later. What do you make of the fact that corruption, which the BJP pitched as its #1 charge against the Aam Aadmi Party, comes in at just 5% of the respondents thinking that's their #1 issue?
Well, absolutely right. I think, Rahul, what happened around the turn of the new year, around that time, BJP was still sort of clueless as to what its core message of that election is going to be. At that time, the local leaders kept insisting that Sheesh Mahal was going to be an important issue, but the writings and the data was pretty clear. It was very evident that this is not sticking. it has already impacted Kejriwal's overall persona and its and the credibility that he brought to the table, and it was settled. I mean, howsoever number of percentage of people who like him continue to like, and who who do not like him as a leader, that number had also largely settled by then, by December 2024. Thereafter, BJP was desperate to actually change its flank, and it was largely done by the central leadership, who were able to bring back the narrative right from Yogi Ji's and Himanta Biswa Sharma's rallies and Prime Minister now going back on the governance issues. Because remember, whenever it came to governance, the Aam Aadmi Party was on a slippery slope. Look at their body language. They started getting way more defensive. You know, when when Aam Aadmi Party and BJP entered into the election fray, the excitement around Aam Aadmi Party was way more. But over a period of time, when the governance issue started taking primacy, BJP started getting its narrative much more sorted, much more in order. They knew when to attack because they were able to corner the Aam Aadmi Party. And on top of that, the budget sort of middle class bazooka that BJP came up with, they now have a positive agenda also. So narrative-wise, BJP seems much more comfortable. Arvind Kejriwal and his party thought that leadership vacuum on the BJP would be their single top agenda. They tried to corner the BJP, but that too also did not stick. So both the parties, Aam Aadmi Party's leadership issue and BJP's Sheesh Mahal issue, both of them lost traction.
No, but if this was a T20 match, it seems that the BJP is coming to the party late. You know, you've got a big asking rate to chase down Amitabh Tiwari. And therefore, even if in the end, power play, you start connecting a few shots and you hit them across the field, can you catch up? It's really the BJP trying to catch up. The AAP is slipping towards the end. The BJP has a lot of catching up to do. Can it? That's the critical question. That's what we'll know on the 5th and the 8th.
No, essentially, if you see, most of the issues which have been highlighted are bread and butter issues. Corruption, inflation, development, unemployment, etc. We find this in each and every state where we go and survey. However, here one important aspect is the civic issues. Largely we get rural distress, agri-distress, but since it's an urban area, we're getting civic issues. Now, this is fairly important because MCD is under the control of the Aam Aadmi Party. Whichever party has won the MCD elections in the past 17-18 years has lost the Vidhan Sabha elections subsequently. Because there is some overlap or there is a lot of confusion between what is the responsibility of the central government, state government and the MCD, there seems to be this overlap. That's number one. Number two, however, we discuss a lot about issues, but issues is not the only main voting consideration of people. It would be leadership, it would be the track record of performance of the government, the track record of the MLA, Hindutva, freebies, etc., etc. The BJP has a lot of catching up to do. However, if you see in Haryana and Maharashtra, they largely focused on a seat-by-seat strategy. And when you focus on a seat-by-seat strategy, you have to raise the local issues. And that's what we have seen. After trying to dent the image of credibility of the Aam Aadmi Party, they have moved towards the bread and butter issue because civic issues is a big issue here which could impact the performance of AAP and also propel the performance of the BJP because the BJP does not have a face. So it is largely relying on 70 candidates whom they have put up to fight against the 70 candidates of Aam Aadmi.
Remember, it's also, Sanjay Jha, about the performance of the grand old party. You know, the once formidable Congress down to 4.5% in the last assembly elections, and how badly or how well, relatively speaking, the Congress does is ultimately what will decide which way Delhi goes. If the Congress can get up to 12-14% votes, then it's curtains for the Aam Aadmi Party. And if it stays 4, 5, 6, then it's to AAP's advantage. What's your reading of how strong the Congress party looks on the ground in the capital at this moment?
You know, Rahul, before I answer the question on the Congress, one very pertinent point. Aam Aadmi Party is brilliant in playing victimhood. And I think the BJP in its usual cocky style has contributed to that narrative with the way they have gone and attacked them pretty brazenly. I saw those pictures of, you know, a lot of the BJP workers taking off their posters, etc. And I think Arvind Kejriwal, let's admit, is a master of actually setting a public narrative. And I think to that extent, Aam Aadmi Party is probably not going to see the kind of declines that people expect it to do, which brings me to the Congress. Rahul, let me tell you, the Congress is trying very hard in this election to try and become a disruptor which makes spectacular gains. My take is that it's not going to happen for a simple reason, that people nowadays, when they vote in an election, they like to see their vote being counted in a material way, in the sense that they like to see their vote making a tangible difference in terms of the candidate winning. Now, I do see that a lot of minority voters and a lot of the Dalit voters will probably be more sympathetic towards the Congress. I've always been critical of Aam Aadmi Party being very ambivalent and very amorphous when it comes to issues of Muslims in particular. They did not speak on Bilkis Banu. They were actually pretty much dodgy when it came to the Shaheen Bagh and even in the 2020 riots. So the bottom line is there will be an erosion, but 53%, the BJP at 38%. I see the Congress not even hitting double digits, frankly speaking, because you can't really suddenly revive an organization or hope to get an electoral windfall by a couple of weeks of campaigning. So even if the Congress were from the base of 4 move to 7, 8, will the BJP gain from Aam Aadmi Party's diminution of vote share? That's a real question. And the BJP has traditionally, even in the best of times, hung around the 33, 34%. Last time it went to 38. Will it now cross 38? I'm not so sure. I think Arvind Kejriwal is still seen as the man who has done a lot of good work for Delhi. And the absence of a face from BJP is going to hurt them. And Shehzad Poonawala, Parvesh Verma, Ramesh Biduri's comments, I don't think they have gone down very well with the electorate at large.
Okay, let's take the next question. This is to do with when people decide who they want to vote for. And this is important because the BJP thinks they're charging towards the end. But is there enough floating votes which can lead to people changing their mind, or do people decide much in advance? A very important question. This, and we can track this across different states. So when people were asked, when do you decide who do you want to vote for? You see the percentage of people saying they decide on the day of voting has increased from 13 to 17%. On the 1st of February, when Yashwant and his team polled, 17% of the respondents told them they will decide on the 5th of February who they wish to vote for. 1 month before voting, 22%. So when the campaign starts is kind of when people decide. That's 1 in 5. That they're committed voters one way or the other, 34%. So 1 in 3 voters are committed. 7% say they wait to see who's the candidate. That's when they decide. 3% say they decide basis the manifesto. But you can leave these on the side. The most important is this 17%, the ones who decide on the day of voting, which basically means about 1 in 5 voters are deciding on the day of polling who they want to vote for, which is a large floating population, Yashwant Deshmukh, which can potentially, 17% of all those who vote decide on the day of voting, which means that there's a lot that can happen. The ball can swing at the Feroz Shah Kotla or the Arun Jaitley Stadium right till the very last over.
Yes, Rahul, and there is a very interesting factor. A sort of which differentiates this particular election in Delhi from others. Generally, we see the day of voting number keeps on getting down and down as and when we reach the polling day. This number comes down. It's kind of weird to see that number has kind of a bit gone up. And that tells us that there are a lot many things which are at play, and a lot of people are changing their mind on 2 things. Number 1, which party they are going to vote for, and also if at all they want to go out and vote or not. So basically turnout and the party. So this is a kind of a weird situation right now in Delhi, which unlike the traditional and conventional way of looking at election, where this day of voting number actually keeps on going down as and when we reach towards the election, it has actually gone up. So a lot of things are at play. This means people are still thinking and they are in double mind. And yes, you are right that number is almost reaching every 5th voter in Delhi. So yeah, That makes life a bit difficult, but yes, that makes
Sanjay Kumar, you do this question in the CSDS tracker for post-poll studies. How does this 13 to 17 appear to you? That earlier 13% said voting can then decide karenge. Now 17% are saying that. So more undecided voters, it seems, or more people who've got their votes in their pockets at this moment saying, "Abhi nahi batayenge, aapko baad mein batayenge. Last moment pe decide karenge."
Rahul, when we did the survey in Maharashtra, we were getting the sense that a very large number of people mentioned, and it was exceptionally very high in Maharashtra, that they said they are going to make up their voting decision on the last.
How much was it? What percentage was it there?
And we know that how the election swung in Maharashtra. Oh, it was roughly at the tune of 35 to 40% last 2 days. Day of voting or a couple of days before voting. This is in Delhi also. Yes, Yashwant Deshmukh's data indicates that there is a rise in that. My own sense is that it is slightly much bigger than what the data is showing. Maybe it is in the range of 20 to 22%. And this is an indication that why we see election changing during last 5 or 7 days or during the campaign. My own sense is that when the elections were announced, at that time, Aam Aadmi Party looked like comfortably in the winning situation, but things have changed during the campaign, and that makes a very large number of population still uncertain whether they are going to vote for party A or party B. So that's going to be very, very crucial, and that can upset whatever calculations we are making in your show today.
Okay, I want to work through some scenario computation that Amitabh Tiwari has done with the Data Intelligence Unit. These are scenarios about how much vote the AAP can afford to lose and still be on top. Remember, the AAP starts from a very high base, and therefore, and they've been in power for 10 years. So naturally, some decline is logical, and that's even something that AAP leaders expect. The question is, how much of a fall will that be, and how much of a fall can AAP really deal with? First, I'll show you which regions which party is strong in, and take you through that data. So in northwest Delhi, this is data from the last assembly election. This is the 2020 vote share data. So there's a 14% gap between the BJP and the AAP in northwest. Basically, look at the gap. It will tell you how much catching up the BJP needs to do and which areas it is close and where it is further away. So in northwest Delhi, a 14% gap. Let's come to the next region. In West Delhi, a 15% gap. 40 for the BJP, 55 for the Aam Aadmi Party. It was 15% gap. In New Delhi, an even bigger gap. 37% versus 55%, an 18% gap between the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP. In Chandni Chowk, an even bigger gap, a 20% gap. BJP up 20% gap between these two parties. In Northeast Delhi, not so much. 39 versus 43, but still a 14% gap between these two leading parties. In East Delhi, the gap is much lesser, just 6%, 49 versus 43, so just a 6% gap. And in South Delhi, a 15% gap. But the thing is, Amitabh Tiwari, that unlike, say, a cadre voter the BJP may have in Gujarat or in Madhya Pradesh, in Delhi, the Aam Aadmi Party's voter is a rather floating voter because it's a relatively new phenomenon. So some came from the Congress party, the Juggi, the Dalits, the poor, the Muslim people, they came from the Congress. Some were the disenchanted middle class, they came from the BJP. So it's a voter which isn't a loyal AAP voter, forever AAP voter. A large part of the voter goes and votes for the BJP in the Lok Sabha election, comes back to Kejriwal in the assembly election. So the BJP is trying very hard to ensure that that doesn't happen, that the middle class voter stays with the BJP rather than goes to the AAP. So there's a lot of floating voters in Delhi, and which is why it is much tougher to call Delhi than it is to call other states.
Yes, essentially because almost 30% of the voters swing between Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha elections from national parties like Congress and BJP to Aam Aadmi Party. If you see the region-wise breakup, there is an interesting thing here is that wherever the lead is very high, which is New Delhi, Chandni Chowk and South Delhi, the percentage of J&J clusters is relatively high there compared to other seats. That's number one. Number two, when you see the lead is low, which is East Delhi and also West Delhi to some extent, the percentage of Purvanchali population also there is significantly high. That's it. Now, you've called it floating voters. I would say the Aam Aadmi Party has a borrowed vote. It depends upon borrowed vote. Its core vote is 20 to 25%. BJP's is 35 to 40. Now it borrows 15% from Congress because those voters vote for the National Party or the Congress Party because they feel that Congress is in a better position to defeat the BJP in Lok Sabha election. And it borrows 15% from the BJP. Now this voter could be voting on the basis of leadership, which is brand Modi versus brand Kejriwal. It could be a section of middle class voters. It could be central beneficiaries versus state beneficiaries. So all these things are there. So Aam Aadmi Party depends upon a borrowed vote. Now it needs the voters to come back to its fold from the Lok Sabha election to the Vidhan Sabha election. And here is where the middle class vote is fairly important. While people say that the poor and the lower socioeconomic class give a lead to Aam Aadmi Party, which is around 14%, but 6% of that lead is coming from middle class voters. Now, if that swings towards the BJP or that stays with the BJP, does not move back to the Aam Aadmi Party because of these corruption allegations and the budget, because now 12 lakh people are saying that 12 lakh is not middle class for India. 12 lakh is actually a rich class because very few people earn that much money. Then it could be trouble. And when you show the numbers and the simulations, we'll see how this 6% lead, which is coming from the middle class, is fairly important in all these calculations.
Okay, so let me run that simulation now. You know, how much vote can the AAP afford to lose and still be in front? Remember, this is not a poll. This is just a scenario mapping that we're doing. And I'll take you through those numbers. What will it take for the BJP to get an upper hand, if it is to get an upper hand against the Aam Aadmi Party? And how much can the AAP afford to slip and yet win? So if you look at the 12 reserved seats in Delhi, so the AAP there had 58% votes and the BJP had 35% of the votes. In the Muslim influence seats, the AAP had 60% votes, the BJP had 33% votes. In the other general category seats, the AAP had 51% vote, the BJP had 41% of the vote. The total vote share was roughly 39 versus 54. Now, if the BJP goes up 6% and the AAP comes down 6%, in the simulation that's been done by Amitabh Tiwari, in the 12 reserved seats, the AAP would still have the lead. 52% votes for the AAP, 41% for the BJP. AAP with 9 of those 12 seats, BJP with only 3. In the 9 Muslim-dominated seats, if the BJP gains 6%, it goes to 39. AAP goes to 54. Then AAP has 6, the BJP has 3. If in the 49 other seats you see the BJP go up by 6%, then the BJP goes up to 47, AAP comes down to 45, and then it becomes 19 versus 30. So you got the BJP now leading at 30, which would then mean that the overall vote share would be AAP coming down to 48 from 54, BJP going up to 46 from about 39, and BJP at 36, AAP at 34. So there are, you know, to my mind, there's a trifecta of issues which really need to be looked at. And let's spend a moment, you know, talking about that. One is, there is a certain middle-class Modi voter who isn't inspired by the Delhi BJP. He goes and votes for AAP in the assembly, even though he's a Modi Bhakt in the Lok Sabha. So that's challenge number one. Challenge number two, and that's the role of the Congress party, the Muslims had moved en masse towards the Aam Aadmi Party in the last 2 assembly elections. Some of them feel that the AAP didn't do enough after the riots, didn't stand up strongly. Rahul Gandhi came to Northeast Delhi after the riots. Kejriwal didn't say enough, and therefore some of them are feeling disenchanted. They don't want to waste their votes. They don't want to move en masse to the Congress because they realize that's a lost and wasted vote. But some part may be disenchanted enough not to want to vote for AAP and want to go back to the Congress. Then there is the Juggi vote. Usually when we travel to the Juggis in the capital, 90% of the voters you meet there are saying, we want to vote for AAP. Now some part of that, and this happened when we were traveling on the campaign trail, some Juggiwalas are now saying they still have problems with sewage, with water, with toilets, which they very clearly do, which was the civic issues you saw in that chart. And some of them, and the BJP has done a lot of work in the last 1 year, in those Juggi clusters to try and break the AAP voter. The extent to which they move away, the extent to which some of the Jhuggi vote moves away from the Aam Aadmi Party. So basically, there's a trifecta of vulnerabilities which you need to capitalize on. But Rajat Sethi, what gives the AAP confidence or some hope is that their starting point is very high. So they really need to slip a lot to lose. You know, you're starting high, so you can afford to lose. It's like a first innings lead. You have a big first innings lead. On the back of that lead, you need to really crash in the second innings to lose this election. You can slip some and still end up winning with a lesser margin, but still win.
Well, I beg to differ here, Rahul. Principally because BJP and Aam Aadmi Party, as their core ideology, the amount of votes that they've been able to cultivate is anywhere between 30 to 35%. But Delhi, over a couple of at least 3 past elections, has seen a wave election in the favor of Aam Aadmi Party. And Aam Aadmi Party and Kejriwal, they used to bring this dichotomy ki center mein to Modi hai, state mein Kejriwal hai. You know, he had that confidence and he went on to create a new sort of landscape for a new type of a politics that he's going to bring in, where the slugfest of the BJP Congress was not to be fought on. So there were this 20%, ideology-less voters who were swayed by the persona that he was bringing. He was trying to create a new charter for Indian politics, seen as a new example. In the current election, what we are seeing is that Kejriwal now is cut out of the same cloth as all the other political parties. So that 20% which helped him bring in every time result into a wave election, that is absent. Now that 20%, certainly there is no wave for BJP also, but BJP, all that it needs to do, because it has such a strong bench strength, that it can have and unleash its leaders to go into every nook and corner and speak to them. Now they have a positive agenda with the budget, addressing some of the needs of the middle class, etc. They can now look eye in eye and say that, yes, we are bringing positive politics as well. And this is where the Aam Aadmi Party, towards the last leg, towards the last 10 days, seems to be feeling this heat. They do not have that big a bench strength. Their core leaders are stuck in their own seats. Kejriwal is struggling in his own seat. Sisodia is struggling in his own seat. Patparganj and the other strongholds of the Aam Aadmi Party are all right now struggling seats. And this is why Arvind Kejriwal is not able to come out like a lion and roar from the central Delhi, Chandni Chowk, etc., and give a very different positive message which could help, conjure a wave in his favor. Minus the wave, you go back to the core constituents of each party. And I believe this is where the BJP's sort of calculation is beginning. This is where BJP feels that all it needs to do is ensure that it holds on to its core voters who have voted for it during the Lok Sabha election very tightly. So they are doing a very very minute door-to-door assessment.
No, but it's not as simple as that, Raja Sethi. If the BJP is able to hold on to the voters who voted for them in the Lok Sabha elections, Sanjay Jha, then we won't have an election in Delhi, then the BJP would win because they had 54% of the vote. The problem is those who vote for the BJP in the Lok Sabha election don't feel inspired in the same way to vote for the Delhi BJP, which is why we have an election in Delhi in the first place. Otherwise, you could just hand over the battle to the BJP. And that really is the challenge, that there's a part of the BJP's own vote that isn't inspired by the Delhi leadership of the Bharatiya Janata Party. They vote for Kejriwal, which is why he wins. Otherwise, the BJP would never be defeated right under the noses of Messrs. Modi and Shah.
Absolutely. I think it's very presumptuous to believe that the corruption allegations made against the Aam Aadmi Party have stuck. If you look at Yashwant's survey, it does say that corruption doesn't seem to be a critical issue. I think over the last 10 years, Rahul, in all honesty, the Indian voter is so disillusioned with the political ecosystem that they see that all political parties are equally corrupt. I think that differentiation story is completely over. Aam Aadmi Party is corrupt, BJP is corrupt, and the Congress is still struggling with the baggage it carries. The fundamental point, therefore, is the Congress going to upset the apple cart of the Aam Aadmi Party? And I can tell you in all honesty, with the people I know in Delhi, they would like to go back to the Congress, but they don't see the Congress as a viable player in this election. And I think the problem for the Congress is that while it has got attention because my good friend Sandeep is fighting Arvind Kejriwal and there is some high-profile contest, they don't determine the larger public decision-making when they come to the EVM or the ballot box. The Congress is actually trying to make a statement because it is worried about Punjab, to be frank. I mean, they would like to make a statement that, listen, we will fight them in Delhi and we have to actually recapture space in neighboring Punjab as well. I'd still see the Aam Aadmi Party will definitely see a secular decline. You are absolutely right. They have had an overwhelming dominance in vote share and seats, never seen before in any assembly election. That's going to come down. And I don't see as the voting day comes closer, I think the expectation that the Congress will dent the Aam Aadmi Party is not really happening. And therefore, it's a bipolar contest in all fairness. Yes, there will be some impact in a couple of seats. Will the margins be enough to bring the Aam Aadmi Party down below 36? At the moment, I'm not so sure.
Amitabh Tiwari, the reality also is, does the AAP need at least 40 to be safe? If they have only, say, 36, 37, is that safe enough? We saw what happened in Chandigarh. It's a very awkward question to ask, and I don't say this in a good way. I mean, it's really terrible that I have to even ask this question, but that is the political reality from Uttarakhand to Arunachal Pradesh to Punjab, Chandigarh, everywhere. To my mind, to be comfortable for 5 years, the AAP needs close to 45, at least 42, 43. If they're close to 36, 37, does that then leave them vulnerable to the kind of games no one likes to see being played, but are played often?
It does. I would agree with you. It does leave or make AAP vulnerable if it wins anywhere between 35 to 40. I would say they would be comfortable between 45 to 50 seats, because we've seen some of the MLAs who were being denied ticket have moved to the BJP, and they have made some serious allegations against the Aam Aadmi Party. See, we are talking about a big lead. The lead is 14%. However, a swing required is only 6%, because we have to see the structure of the lead. In SC reserved seats and Muslim influence seats, the lead is 20% plus. But in 50 odd seats, the lead is just 10%. For a 10% lead to neutralize, you require a swing of just 5%. And we've seen in Lok Sabha elections, we used to consider seats won with 10% margin as decent enough margin. But BJP lost many of those seats. So 5% swing or a 10% lead is not huge. Given so, when 17% of the voters are undecided, so they are the kingmakers literally, because 14% was the lead. And if you see how have they moved, this 4% increase has come at the cost of people who were saying that they have decided 1 month in advance. So even people who had decided 1 month in advance have become 50-50 or have become undecided 3 to 4%. So this 17% is the key. These are the floating voters also. And Sanjay Jay said that around 35-40% were the swing were the last late deciders in Maharashtra. Across surveys, and I follow a lot of their surveys, 25 to 30% is the average of the last day voting and 2 to 3 days before voting. So this is the key. It all depends upon micromanagement.
No, but that's where, Rajat Sethi, the ability to bring your voter to the polling booth then becomes key. On polling day, get the guy and the girl, like the patriarch and his wife, get the children, get the grandparents. If someone's pregnant, bring her too. Who can mobilize the entire family? Bring out all your votes. Every vote will matter. This is not a wave election, unlike the last two elections, where even if you ask a lamppost who it's voting for, the lamppost will also say, this is not that kind of election. Which is why, and the thing is, unlike the Congress, which usually gets outsmarted, the AAP is a Machiavellian character. I mean, they're foxy. They've been getting under the skin of the BJP. They've been, whether it's crying victim or doing what it takes, they've been setting the narrative. So they're pugnacious fighters. They don't want to roll back and just lie over. They're giving it to the extent that they can, as good as they get.
So first thing, that the election is on a Wednesday. So there is no long weekend that is there. So it will ensure that the typical middle class office going audience, which typically has a bias towards voting for the BJP, is out there and is not going on a long vacation. That is point number one. Point number two, that BJP and RSS together are creating those micro units, micro outreaches to a scale which at least Delhi hasn't seen. There are layers of such organizational structure which have been created in every constituency, so much so that household to household mappings have been done not And such kind of a mapping was not visible in the previous at least 3-4 Delhi's assembly elections. So BJP is now smelling that there is an opportunity, and only if it can ensure that micro management and micro outreaches to these households, use its RSS's wide outreach across the city to ensure that the mobilization that is needed in the last 48 hours is done. BJP stands a solid chance, and I think this is where Aam Aadmi Party, with at least 8-9 MLAs moving out, some of them in the jail, the morale of the party down, and all of its star leaders stuck up in their own constituencies, is feeling that last sort of pinch, which otherwise entering into the election, Aam Aadmi Party wasn't feeling that heat. And I think this is where BJP is spinning its hope. Whether it will be able to do or not, that hasn't been decided yet, because the last 48 hours are still left. So a lot needs to be seen as to how much of
every hour matters in this election. Every hour till polling ends matters, which is why I just want to say before we end, we haven't told you who to vote for. Vote for whoever you want to vote for. Our effort really was to try and bring out some of the issues so that you have a good sense of the factors at play before the capital goes out to vote. There's not much at stake politically. It's a small state, frankly, not much at stake. But there's a lot of vanity, prestige at stake. And in politics, vanity and prestige, especially for the big boys and girls, that is what matters most. I mean, nothing else matters as much as vanity and prestige. So let's see how this goes. But what's undisputed is that it will be a fascinating election. When there's a fascinating election, there's really just one place for you to be, which is glued to your screens on India Today television, because we have no skin in the game. So we will cover this election as well as we possibly can, regardless of who wins and loses. May the best man or woman win. I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. I'm slipping into break. I'll have more for you on the other side. I want to thank my guests for joining us. Our coverage of the big Delhi elections is non-stop, continuous and live right here on India Today. The third Amrit Snan of the Kumbh went off without a hitch at Prayagraj. Remember, this Snan came days after the stampede that killed nearly 30 people. Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath had called for zero-error arrangements this time. Gaurav Sawant was at the Triveni Sangam. Here is his ground report.
The fourth Amrit Snan of Mahakumbh on the auspicious Basant Panchami was colourful, serene and spiritual. Millions thronged to take the holy dip in the Triveni Sangam nearly a week after the tragic stampede of Mauni Amavasya Amrit Snan. The administration ensured that there was no repeat of tragic death or injury in quest of salvation and spiritual bliss.
The Honorable CM and the Chief Secretary and DGP, we pulled up and reviewed our performances, reviewed the areas where we're doing better and reviewed the areas where we had to do better than what we had done earlier. We also analyzed the challenges which were thrown to us in Mauni Amavasya and developed solutions to this. And then each of the solutions was executed on today and yesterday and today. And it has so far gone off smoothly, fingers crossed.
At break of dawn, seers from various akharas, including the ash-smeared Naga sadhus, began their ceremonial journey towards the confluence of Ganga, Yamuna and the mythical Saraswati River at the Triveni Sangam.
अमृत राजसी साई स्नान किया और हमने अपने देवताओं का पूजन किया, हमने गंगा का पूजन किया, हमने भगवान शिव का पूजन किया, हमने महादेव का पूजन किया। इस परंपरा को स्मरण में रखने के लिए लाखों करोड़ों सन्यासी और सनातनी तरसते हैं आज के इस दृश्य को देखने के लिए। तो इसलिए आज हम सब अत्यंत आह्लादित हैं।
अखाड़ा जो है ये आदि गुरु शंकराचार्य की परंपरा है। शंकरम शंकराचार्यम केशवम बादरायणम सूत्र भाष्य कृतो वंदे भगवंतो पुनः पुनः। ये शास्त्र और शस्त्र की परंपरा है और आज शास्त्र की पूजा करने का दिवस है।
Rose petals were showered on the seers and the pilgrims. Starting on the Mahasankranti, in more than 2 weeks, over 35 crore devotees have taken holy dip at the Mahakumbh. Bureau Report, India Today.
This is where we wrap up the news track tonight. For your time and your trust, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you at 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. Till then, from all of us here, goodbye, good night.